Welcome, Jennifer. It's so great to have you. Welcome to Unseen to Unstoppable Summit, Essential Strategies designed to create remarkable women who shine. And just to be clear with everyone, we're all remarkable women who shine. And so glad to have you, Jennifer, here at the summit. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here, and I love the unstoppable theme. I love that so much.
Yeah, I thank you so much. It's been on my heart, and it's been so great how many women are resonating with it, and just how many people in general. So I'm so glad that it resonated with you and that you're here today, and you have some amazing strategies. You have a story that's near and dear to my heart, especially around the term Christian psychic. And so I know that we'll get into that. In the meantime, before we do, I would love for you to just introduce yourself, if you would.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer. And as she said, Christian and psychic was something I wanted to be unseen. So within this theme of this unseen to unstoppable, I really resonated with the whole idea of it, because growing up, I had this little secret, right? Like we didn't really talk about it. It was one of those things that was safe at the kitchen table. And that, of course, is a little bit of the backstory that created my story and created me stepping into the work that I do, helping other women learn to embrace their gifts, learn to embody this divine feminine that we're all being called to be, and really learning that it's okay to be exactly who you are and just embracing that. So all of my work has revolved around the theme of embodied grace, which is really about women's empowerment, right? Which sounds so cliche and out there, but it's really coming to terms with your divine sovereignty, with understanding at a soul level who you are, and knowing that who you are is exactly who God made you to be. And that when you can accept that, right? When you can accept that for yourself, that you're who you're meant to be, then that is when you become this unstoppable force, because you connect with your soul purpose, we'll call it, or your drive or your calling on a different level that becomes part of the reason you're here, the things that you're here to shine light on, and really allows you to step into a different level of life with grace and ease.
I love that so much. It kind of ties into, I think you've touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to ask you this first question. What does unseen to unstoppable personally mean to you?
Oh, that's such a big question, right? Like as soon as you say it, you hear it in your heart and you're like, yeah.
So many
So
things.
it's so funny, because even at I've been doing this work for years. I wrote a book called The Secret Psychic. I mean, come on, it's out there. But there's always a new level of really being seen. And there's a vulnerability to it, but you want to be vulnerable from a place that's safe, right? And so I think that's what I love so much about this summit that you're doing, is it's giving women a safe place to dive into all of these different places within ourselves. So for me personally, that theme is about really, again, embracing the parts of myself that I wanted to keep hidden, that I didn't really want anybody to know. And then understanding that because of that experience that I've had, that's leading the way for me to be brave enough to speak to it, so that other women can then also find their own place in. It's amazing to me how many women have such a similar experience. They're like, I have this weird intuition, or I feel these things, or I know these things, or I've seen things my entire life and I didn't want to tell anybody, right? Because there's so many different aspects of the idea of having a psychic experience, having an intuition, being empathic, which is totally separate than having empathy. Like we all have empathy as humans. Pretty much everybody has some kind of level of empathy, but when you're empathic, that's an entirely different level, because you physically feel, you mentally, emotionally feel what other people are feeling, and sometimes that's hard to differentiate from your own. And then on top of that, all of the other, like the mediumship, being able to grow up in a Christian community and then being able to talk to dead people is a little bit taboo, right? So there's so many different aspects to this whole idea of not wanting to be seen for who we really are and having to hide away so many of those feminine qualities, honestly, right? Like we talk about women's intuition, but we need to keep it women's intuition in just this little box. Like, let's not get it out there, right? Into other things. So it's what's accepted with women's intuition. That is changing across the board. Like we're seeing people be more open to it, but really the idea of being seen fully for all of this, the psychic and intuitive capabilities that so many women have and have shut down. And when we can learn that that is part of our feminine quality, that is a part of, I feel like, what God gifted us with, because we have a different intuition than men, right? There's a feminine quality to that, that when we can embrace that, we literally can become more of who we're really meant to be as women on the planet.
Wow. So many things with what you said there that I'm just so curious about. So so if you call it mediumship, psychic, is that different from the gifts of the Holy Spirit, speaking from a perspective of Christianity? And if it's different, how so?
Well, so here's the thing, right? The difference, to be totally honest, is the intention. When you're tapping into these gifts, we'll call it tapping in, or when you're embracing these gifts, what's the intention behind it? Now, for those of us with a Christian background, in my opinion, they're literally different words for the same thing, because it's the same, whether you call it psychic or whether you call it a prophet. If you look in the dictionary at the base root of those words, it's very similar. The only difference is somebody's saying it's just a psychic vision. Somebody else is saying this is from God. You know what I mean? So it's really an interesting dynamic. Now, the mediumship thing, there's like 5 verses in the Bible that always get thrown out there. This is not my specialty or my wheelhouse, but I know this from my own experience, what I've been through. There's only 5 verses. They get a little bit tweaked and a little bit misinterpreted, and it's all because of fear. It's all because of fear. But if you think back, biblically speaking, think back to all of the prophets and the experiences that they had. And all that would have taken was one person to disagree or to be afraid of what they were saying. And they could have been deemed like, who are we to know what people were decided? Okay, they're okay. We're going to let them be a prophet, but this one is not. Do you know what I mean? So it's really this fine balance of understanding how is it decided, right? Yeah. For me personally, God, source, spirit, universe, I don't care what you call it. I know that this is God. This is everything that is, in my opinion, God is, period. Yeah. My heart is for good, for happiness, for joy, for peace, for everybody to have their own divine sovereignty, for people to be able to enjoy their life, for abundance to be the reality for everyone. And from what I know from my Bible, from what I've read and what I've understood, that is what God wants for us. So in my personal opinion, that if it aligns with that, that is a good thing. The other thing is, again, depending on the person that you're going to, right? So depending on the psychic, I always say use discernment, because people can tap into things, but what are they tapping into? So you want to, in my opinion, again, as a Christian woman, I want somebody that I know has a strong faith. And when they're tapping in, they're not just saying, okay, whatever's in the universe, come talk to me. We want to be very clear. We want to have discernment that we only want to connect with that, which is in the highest and best of integrity, light, love, and it really resonates at the higher frequencies. It's really easy to tell the difference because the messages coming through are either going to be encouraging or loving, or like, even if it's a quote unquote warning from your angels, it's going to be in a loving way versus fear and judgment and, pushing people down. That really, to me, is the easiest way to discern if it's of God and of love and of light, versus if it's not.
Yeah. And that is such an important distinction. So I'm glad that you said that. For me, when I have a word of knowledge, and you can call it, somebody's giving me the word of knowledge, if you want to call that person a psychic, I'm with you, or a word from the Holy Spirit, from God, I immediately resonate with it. And it's not like in a spiritual, from my spirit, and it's, like you say, it feels like love. And it's usually a confirmation. It's usually not something like out of left field going, what? It's usually like God's already spoken to me about it in my spirit, and this one's coming along to confirm it. So I think that's a huge distinction that you make. So important. So I'm curious, how have you chosen to embody the unseen to unstoppable transformation in your own life?
Well, it was really coming to terms with myself, right? Like I had a knockdown drag out. So I always laugh. I'm like, I had a knockdown drag out fight with God. And I said, look, let's get this figured out. But really what happened is like, I had tried my entire life to choke down the psychic part. I've always seen everything. So spiritual realms. And again, this is one of those things that people are like, oh, that's not real. And I'm like, do you read your Bible? Because and it doesn't matter if it's biblical. I mean, religion across the board, every religion that I know of talks about other entities, whether they're angels or guides or, spirits or celestial beings or, it's spoken about in many different languages, in many different religions. So to me, that was always the funny part is like, people are like, oh, that's not real. And I'm like, it talks about it. So how is this not real? But I had seen those other dimensions, spiritual entities, whatever you want to call the other realms. I've seen Jesus and the angels my entire life. So I've been able to see all of the galactic beings. Like I've seen that since I was little. Like I don't really remember a time I didn't. And that includes people that have passed over. So there's all of these different multi-dimensional realities happening simultaneously. And to me, in my mind, especially when I was younger, it was like, well, yeah, heaven's all around us. That to me, it just made sense on a internal level. It just made sense. Yeah. So it made sense to me that all of these beings were there. It talks about angels and demons and all of these different things. So why would it not be real, right? So to me, that was always just part of my experience with seeing it. But then when I was a little bit older, I realized I probably shouldn't tell people about it. It's like it started like when I was old enough to be, start being aware of it a little bit more. Then I started shutting it down, trying not to be able to see all of the things. And then I finally did have this one moment where, because I would get messages from people, I would get like different kind of information that would come through, and I'm like, do I share this? Are they going to think I'm crazy? Like all of these different things. And just because you have a message for somebody doesn't always mean you should share it, right? Like just because you see something doesn't mean you need to tell
Pearls
them.
Before swine, you got
right. So you've got to be, again, using the gifts with integrity is what I teach my clients, is like using it with integrity. And then, but being able to come to terms with that, I shut it down for years. All that did was create anxiety and stress. And really shutting down a part of me, didn't do anybody any good. So at one point, I literally had a knockdown drag out and I said, look, God, I have prayed for this to go away. I had prayed for years for it to go away, and it never did go away. And in that moment, I was so desperate. I was like, take this away or show me what to do with it. And that was the turning point for me, because I finally asked, show me what to do with it instead of just take it away. So whenever that happened, then I was like, okay, obviously, because in that moment, spirit flooded around me. And I'm like, okay, I just asked for God to show me what to do with it. And I got the angel bumps, I call it, or the goosebumps.
Yeah,
where you just could feel, I could just feel that it was truth. And so I was like, okay, let's start. And I like to learn how to do things, and I like to learn step by step. And so I had guides and angels that came in and helped me learn like why I'd been seeing all of the spirit my entire life and what that looked like and how to communicate with the other realms. And so I started learning for myself. And then as I learned more about it, and again, I would pray and I would get my Bible and I would do, my family used to make fun of me because I had like 3 different versions of the Bible. I would have notebooks everywhere. I'd have sticky notes everywhere. And I would be taking the messages that spirit was giving me and then looking like, how does this relate? Is this truth? Like, and it was so amazing to me. But doing that for myself is I had to I had to become solid within myself. My faith has never faltered. As a matter of fact, it's gotten so much stronger. And
Yeah.
like reading things, for example, reading the Bible now, a totally different meaning, right? Than
Mhm.
what it meant before, because I understand it on a more galactic or celestial or spiritual level.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's funny that you use those words. The word I use for that is the holistic. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like once I started to learn about the science, learn about energy, learn about what other belief systems are calling it, chi, chakra. Like, once I started to learn that, oh, I feel like my relationship with God, with Jesus, just got so, with myself, so much stronger. So that, I mean, that's my experience. Um, so to hear you say that just really, yeah, it's like a confirmation. And also, you feel that confirmation in your spirit as well. So tell me then, Jennifer, what did you do with it? Like, you
Well,
asked God and he gave you, like, what did you do with it?
well, at first I huffed and pouted. I'm not gonna lie, like it was so funny
That's
because
how you know it's from God.
right. I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to do this. So I literally, you have to come to terms with it for yourself. And in that moment, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. And then it was like, okay, now that you've figured this out for yourself, it's time for you to speak to this. Now, I've always been a natural. People tell me things, right? Like people always tell me things. They confide in me. This has been my entire life. I've always had that. So I've always had this natural ability to be a safe place for people to talk about things. And so I started like just dipping my toe in the water a little bit with like life coaching. I was already a health coach and things like that. So the coaching aspect of it was not a big deal to me, but I started transitioning more into like a life coaching setting. Again, I went and got the certificate, I did the training, all the things. Um, and then at one point I was still just using the word intuitive, and I'm not a morning person. This is not a secret. So I am not a morning person. And like, I can't remember, like 3 days in a row, I was getting woken up at like 3, 4 in the morning. And I felt like Jesus was sitting at my bed going, okay, are you going to call yourself a Christian psychic yet? And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it. And finally, the third morning, I'm not kidding, I was like, fine. I stormed downstairs. I started my coffee. I stormed down the next level because we were in the house that we used to live in. Stormed down to my office. I got my computer started, booted all that up, went back upstairs, got myself a cup of coffee, came backstairs, and I changed everything. My website, everything. I changed. I even bought like, I think, business cards back in the day, when you still had business cards. And I put Jennifer Lundberg Christian Psychic on there. From there, then it was like I ended up writing my first book, which was Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment. And then the second book, which is The Secret Experiences of a Closet Psychic. And so writing the books has been good because, again, the Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment, that was learning how to step into the life that you want. And it's all about mindset and beliefs and making choices that are sovereign and making choices that feel good and learning to take care of yourself, learning to have healthy boundaries, and learning what it means to like even start working with affirmations, because you in order to change your life, you need to start at some of those base places, right? And for me, some of the limiting beliefs I had was around this ability that I have, this psychic ability, this gift that I thought was a curse. So some of it for me was changing the narrative within my own mind about this being a gift versus being a curse.
Right.
Right. So then from there, once I was able to work within that within myself, learning what self-care is, learning what self-awareness is, learning that I can create and have more intentionality around the life that I want to live, then it was like, okay, now I have this piece, the life coaching piece makes sense. Of course, it was all divinely inspired. And then the second part of it was, now let's really take this to the next level and not only help women learn how to have a life that they want, to create a life that they love, but also completely embody and embrace everything about themselves.
Wow. So good. So what strategies do you have today to share with you kind of went through the process that you went through and shared a little bit. What practical strategies for the audience are you able to share with them today?
So around the intuitive piece, or around, I mean, it really, I have a 5-step process you can use almost for anything.
Oh, okay.
So in my first book, Embodied Grace, A Woman's Path to Empowerment, it's 5 steps. It's decide what you want, right? So, and you can change this at any time, right? So if you decide today, I want to do XYZ, that's great. If you start down the path and you're like, you know what, this isn't really as exciting as I thought, you can always change it. It's not like once you decide something, you're locked in forever, but you have to have something that you're deciding on that you want to go towards. It's like if you get in your car and you open the map, where do you want to go? You have to have some idea of where you want to go. So if you open the map on your phone or, GPS or whatever, but where are you going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
You get to understand where you are right now.
Yeah.
So you know
Yeah.
where you're going, right? That's
So
great.
decide what you want to have. And then it's learning what is self-care to you. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but that is the next piece, because you're going to have to love yourself through the changes that come along. Because when you decide to make changes, there will be things that come up against you. And are you sure you want to do this? And you're getting scared because you're out of your comfort zone. So you've got to love yourself through it. And then on top of that, a lot of the women that I know, when they get overly stressed, they get sick, right? So you've got to be in a place of taking care of your physical body. So self-love becomes self-care becomes more than just like we're not talking go to the spa, which I'm all for, believe me. Like, I love going for, all of the spa treatments, but it's beyond that. It's literally learning how to take care of yourself on all levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and galactically, with all of these energies coming in, the solar flares and the, all of that happening. Then it's self-awareness. That's the next piece. When you're going through this journey, you have to be ready to fully face yourself, right? So self-awareness is, what is your triggers? What are your beliefs? Is there anything that you're like, nope, it has to be this way, right? Because if you're in that space, you've got to know what that is for you. And then you've got to also know what your Achilles heel. You've got to know, what are your triggers? And where do you get off course? Because again, from a spiritual perspective, we know we're in a contrast on this planet. So there will be things that are going to, I don't want to say blocks or things that are trying to stop you, but there will be things that come up that maybe try to get you off of your path. So you've got to be in a space of, okay, if I'm self-aware, then I'm going to know if this is triggering me, or if I'm backing down because I don't want to face it, or the self-awareness piece comes in big.
And that also, like the step before that, where what I heard you say is like knowing your why. Like, why are you doing this? Because when those moments come up, you get to tap back into it and go, oh yeah, right. Because this is the life I say I want to have. I see this vision of me having this life. This is the path to that.
And then this next piece is exactly that define it. Right? So you have to define what that, okay, I want a different life. You've decided, okay, I want my life to be different. Okay, I'm going to love myself through this. I'm going to be aware of my triggers. But now what does it look like? Because if you don't know what it looks like, it's hard to create it, right? So again, you go into this, what does it look like? What are things that I'm going to be able to measure so that I can say, when I see this, I know that that's something that I'm headed towards. Defining it has a lot more to do with the way we want to feel about things, more so, I feel like, than what actually physically manifests. Like, it's one thing to say, I want a new car, but why do you want a new car? Like, what's it going to do for you? Well, I won't be stressed about if it's going to break down on the way to take my kids to soccer or to school or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's more about the feeling that you want, which a new car may just be because you want a new car, and that's great. And you want to feel the new leather and you want to have the shiny thing, but it could be because that's not the feeling you're after. You're actually after the feeling of security that your car gets you where you want to go. Right. So we've got to, when you define it in that way, then that helps, I think. And then the final step is to actually just take action. You have to claim it. And in order to claim it, you have to take action steps towards that. So if you say, okay, I want to start showing up in a new way, I'm going to love myself, I have self-awareness around it, I want it to look like this, okay, I'm not going to wear sweats anymore. I'm going to be, which I'm all for again. Like, so there is no judgment in this. I'm all for a good hoodie and a pair of sweats. But like, if you've decided that that's not how you want to present yourself, then when you get up that next day, you've got to change your out. Like, you can't wear the same clothes. You have to do something different to get into that new energy that you want to be. The same thing, like if you decide that I'm trying to think of some easy things. If you decide that you want to give yourself like beautiful things in your home, like you need to buy the $15 bouquet at the grocery store and bring that into your home, right? Instead of saying that you want it, but then you're not actually going to take any action on it. Does that make sense? Like those little things like that make such a big difference.
I mean, I have, I just talked about this recently around finding something that I wanted in my own life. And it's actually started with this summit and creating a $1 million plus business. And I'm creating a $1 million plus business from my $100 mindset. And wondering, why is this not happening for me? The minute that I chose to embody, I asked myself, what would, if I was creating if I already have $1 million plus business right now, then how would I show up? Oh, I started getting excited. The first thing I would do is I would have I would invest in a business coach. I would invest in myself. I would invest in my business and so that I can scale it and grow it. And then I was like, oh, those are the choices and the action steps that I get to do now. And, and nobody's saying here, run yourself into debt and to do all the things. And I chose to do all the things. If I believe, because I can see it, I believe it. And it's not even believing it. There was a knowing, Jennifer, that I had. And you say a knowing, not just a knowing. I saw it. It's a vision. And I'm going to live like it's happening now. And the verse that came up for me is, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I don't see the $1 million in my bank account, but I see it through the eyes of my heart.
And that's how it will come.
And with less than 3 months, Jennifer, the abundance has shown up in so many ways. I created my first $100,000 month last month. Never when I switched into the choose and move, and this is the action I'm going to take, as if I'm in that mindset of that $1 million business entrepreneur now, everything shifted. So thank you.
It's so true. Well, and what's interesting is, as you're saying that, I'm getting chills. One of the things, I had a container that is finishing up this year, but it was called Call to Abundance. And one of the last calls that we had, it was, you go first. You have to go first. You have to make your move. When you make your move, everything else will follow. And it will show up quickly, but you have to be in that space of claiming that that's what you want.
And when you claim it, it's not like we have heard that, I know, in Christian circles, right? Name it and claim it. And you just said something so good, because the second thing that I chose to do was, if I'm asking for others to invest in me, I get to invest in me. So the minute that I paid into my company what I'm asking others to pay into as the membership, I did it first. My husband followed next. And within, this is no word of a lie, within less than a half an hour, I had 4 other people jump in. Boom, boom, boom. I was like, wow,
Mm.
the
Well,
opening of those doors, just the floodgate.
and so this is from like the energy perspective, right? So you open the energy. What happens is those energy pathways are not there. But then it's one thing to pray about it and whatever, but if in the back of your mind, it's like, it's never going to happen. But when you fully like take that leap of faith and you're trusting that that's where you're being called to do, when you take that step, it literally opens the energy to allow everything to fill in where it needs to come in.
So good. So good. I hope that, no, not that I hope. I know the listeners and our audience is something speaking to you right now. I'd love for you to get in the chat. I'd love for you to share with us what you're taking away from this. What revelations did you have? So the rest of the community could learn from, you get to be a teacher in the moment. If you're having revelations, you sharing that revelation in the chat, in the community with others could spark one for them. Don't hold on to that. That's taking action. That's going and knowing that, oh, wow, if this spoke to me like this, who else can it speak to? That's a big reason. That's how we get to unstoppable. We take those risks. We take those chances. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing that. You sharing your 5-step process and the generosity that you're showing me by being on this, and the rest of the audience. We're here creating win-wins, and I know that you have something else that you want to give to the listeners today and to the viewers. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I do. Can I really quickly say something about hope? I'm actually so glad that you said that you hope, because if you look back, again, this is going back into the history and looking at the root meaning of words. That's something that's so powerful. The original meaning of the word hope biblically was excited anticipation. You knew, you had a hope. You knew that God was going to bring it to you.
Yeah.
So that hope, the word hope isn't maybe what you think it means. It's literally, it's going to make a difference. So there's that. Really quickly, I have different free offers that are available on my website. You could look under free resources. The one I'm really excited about right now is Accelerating Your Soul's Journey. And it's 10 keys to help you unlock your spiritual ascension. I feel like so many people are being called to take the next step in their spiritual journey. The energy is shifting and changing on the planet. The way we experience life on this planet is changing. And I really would love to help everybody live with as much divine alignment as possible.
Yeah.
So that would be something that's really helpful. And then the other piece that I always like to leave everyone with is, you are an amazing, divine, sovereign being. Just allow yourself to believe it. Allow yourself to understand just how beautiful and amazing and powerful you are, and let yourself be unstoppable.
Yes. Yes. Allow yourself to step into the beingness of unstoppable. And what does that look like for you personally? Step into that today, because that is exactly who you are. It's not a fake it till you make it. It's not a faith it even till you make it. It's a knowingness that that's who you are. So good. I will make sure that we, put all the links to these gifts to in the show notes, all the things to how to get a hold of you. Your website will be there. And just a final question before we go, Jennifer. What is one piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in your journey that could help someone right now?
You are worthy. I think there's so many women that don't understand and have wounded self-worth, right? So if you hear anything, listen to this with your heart and soul. You are worthy.
Period. End of story. Mic drop. And there's a part of you that knows you are because you came to this summit. You know, you might have thought you were coming because you felt or have felt unseen, or you're currently feeling unseen. But you took the step and you're here today. Congratulations. Celebrate that. And, you know, keep going. Keep going. We're here to cheer you on. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was absolutely lovely and inspiring for me. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us. And so excited to work with you further. Just thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting this on. Thank you for offering this to the women out there. It's amazing.